and I'm trying to make it as inexpensive as possible. Foam generators, on the market, you just do some research, they cost thousands of dollars. So this little kit you can get for $320. And Gabe's going to demonstrate how to put it together. And let's go.
Cool. Also, if anybody's interested, there's water over there and some cups for drinking. This is like your little package that you would get in the mail. It's like Christmas. Cut it open. And there's a whole bunch of things inside. There will be some instructions, which we don't need right now. And then the first thing that you have to do is mount these end plates to the bucket. And that is done first by drilling out. So we have this little PVC plate that we've already cut the holes into and shaped so that it fits into the bucket. And I like to kind of position it so that it sort of covers the words on the bucket because I can. And then drill out some holes through the bucket.
Take your time, Gabe.
No, I'm on
It's a
a time
race.
trial. This is a time trial.
Hurry up.
Right, and then we have some inch and a quarter nails right over here. Oh no, actually they're provided with the kit. So with the kit comes a bag of all the little parts that you need in order to make everything work. And so you take these inch and a quarter nails and put them up through those holes that we just drilled. And then screw one of the plates on. Part of the way. You don't need to make it all the way tight because in order to get a tight fit with the PVC cap, you want to keep the.
It's not.
What's that? It's not all the way through, or what?
It's not.
Thanks. And then the other side. So this cap here, before it goes on, there's a couple of things that need to go into it. There's this Y connector right here, and then the pressure regulator and the solenoid valve need to go into it. And the solenoid valve and the pressure regulator are put together with this little nipple. And we need some PVC tape to put on the nipple just so that the air doesn't leak through the threads.
Oh, there's actually a little roll of it there.
There is. I didn't see it, so I grabbed another one. I don't see it still.
Time trial,
Is that? Oh no, I'm.
That's
mistaken
the
that.
cap that I just took off.
Yeah.
But generally, when we pack these, we put a roll of plumber's tape in it. All right. Where'd the pressure regulator go? Or sorry.
It's right there.
Thank you, on top of the bucket. Okay, so there's an arrow on the pressure regulator that tells you which direction the air flows as it goes through. And you want to put the nipple, I don't know here if you want to look at it, it points that direction. So you want to make sure that the arrow points to where the nipple goes on so that once this is mounted on this plate right here, it's going to sit on the outside. You're going to have the solenoid valve on the inside, and then your air intake will go like that. So, I'm going to take this over to the vice grip really quick because it makes it a lot easier for screwing together. Get a wrench. Yeah, that would make it a little bit easier. I believe it's on the top shelf. Yeah, it's on the top shelf next to the tape below that drill bit, all the way up to the top.
I had a rubber band for it too, but I don't see it.
Alright, so getting this little Y joiner together is kind of tricky because it just barely fits inside that hole. So we use the vice grip to squeeze it in. And it goes into this bottom hole it's just a hole, there's no square cut out into it. And we use this piece of plastic.
Normally, You usually have a piece of rubber band to hold that. And let me do it on this side.
Okay. And we just line up the Y connectors. Rotate this so that when the PVC, so that it doesn't stick out of the PVC plate.
That good?
Yeah, go ahead.
What you do? Oh, wait, that might be up too high there. And you can put that in with a C clamp, or you can even use I put it in with a rubber mallet too, but a vise definitely works the best. It's a, you know, I made it a press fit so you don't have to put a fastener on it. It's much simpler.
All right, and then the solenoid valve, which is this little thing right here, goes in like this. So you want the arrow to be pointing in ways. So when it fits in, there's a little arrow on the side of the solenoid valve that points like that. And then you take the pressure regulator and just start screwing it in. And then I like to hold it in the vice grip. And then when you're screwing it down, you want to make sure that you don't get it down so tight that the this piece right here, because the nipple is stronger than the metal that this is made out of. If you go too tight, you can crack the pressure regulator. So I spin it around until it gets pretty tight, and then I make sure that the dial is facing upwards so that when you have it on the Dragon, you can read the dial right there. And there's still a little bit of a space between the regulator and the plate. And then we put in this little air quick connect. Thank you.
Do instructions come with your kit?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
instructions every package.
Yeah, there's complete instructions that show you every step. But we don't have a video of it yet.
You
So.
have to memorize
Oh,
this.
you're gonna have about 6
Yeah. Yeah, it's like eight pages of instructions.
Supply your shopping list for Home Depot.
That's probably good. We don't have a video of it yet.
All right. This end cap goes in on the other side of the bucket.
You don't know how to do this, or what?
Okay, and then before I make it tight, I put this here cap on it. And then I'll put a clamp on it so that when... Alright, the clamp is actually inside. So...
Oh, you
So I
don't
won't
need, you don't
zip
need
it.
one.
Okay, but anyways, generally I'd put a clamp on it so that it just sucks these PVC end caps right up against the plastic so that there's no like seams that are split open or anything like that in the between the end caps and the cover. And I screw it the rest of the way in.
This is the Dragon?
This is the little Dragon.
This is
Foam
the
generator.
continuous foam generator. Yeah, the little dragon.
And what is the setting you put the air pressure at?
Well, it depends. What we do is we weigh the foam. That's what's important. And the pressure of the air determines the weight of the foam. The more pressure, the lighter the foam.
Right, okay.
And so we'll show you that once we get this thing working.
Is that cap supposed to come off so easily like that?
Yeah, we'll screw it down eventually.
Okay.
This piece right here you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah. Okay, and then here is our high pressure water pump. And you have to put this wire through this cap right here. So I cut it at about 5 inches. Yeah. Oh! No. And then you gotta strip the wires so that you can see them all. So I take a razor
Careful, Gabe.
Yep. and
Oh,
just,
wait a second, Gabe, I don't want you to have your finger like that.
if you can put it sideways like that, then you can get your finger out of the way when you're cutting it. So you can have it sort of resting up against the table. And you want to be careful as you cut down with the wire because there's 3 wires inside of this bigger wire. And you don't want to cut through their coating that insulates them. Because if they touch, then electricity doesn't flow quite the way it's supposed to through the machine.
So there's no other way, like you wouldn't be able to put it right to this, edge.
Well, no, because
Like,
you got to push this thing
how do
through.
we notch this thing so that it could kind of go into the edge?
No, it's gotta be connected to the switch and the solenoid valve and the motor, and you'll see.
Okay.
And then you do the same thing with the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you're right, you could put a little groove in there and then caulk it with some silicone caulk cover.
Can you get that in your?
We'll see
Well,
what
the phone was
happens.
good. Only can have you can have several.
And then you strip the ends of the wires back maybe about a quarter to a half, probably more like a quarter of an inch. Right about there. Expose the copper. Do the same thing on the pump.
Could you substitute that pump for a DC pump
You could,
if you were off grid?
you sure
And
could.
then this wire sometimes turns out a little bit bigger than the hole in this plate right here. So you just gotta drill through the hole.
What size bit is that?
5/16.
5/16, okay.
And then the way that the pump goes on, there's a space drilled out in this plate so that the pump can fit through it convenient, or so that this little knot in the pump will fit through it nicely. And then everything that ties into the pump is on this side. So you put the wires so that they're all in the same general direction. Like that. Make sure that the pump's not touching the solenoid valve and that it's not like banging up against anything, that there's plenty of space. And then this wire we cut at 7 inches, which is about the length of that, and do the same sort of stripping process. And then the pump gets screwed down. Also with those same 1/4 inch or 1.25 inch screws. They just go right through the little rubber feet on the pump. And then we use this little spacer to kind of guide how deep we want the screws to be, which is about 1/2 inch. But it's mostly important to me that you just don't put the screws through the plate in the bottom of the bucket, which I don't think that I did. So if the screws are poking through, then you'd want to back them out a little bit. And then you can push this wire through. And there's the hole that I just drilled out that it fits through nicely, hopefully. Actually, you know what, before that, it's actually easier if you take your tubing here and cut it into the right lengths. So, there are 2 pieces that you need to put on to here before you wire it in. And the first piece is a piece that goes from this Y connector to this corner right here into the pump, and that piece needs to be 7¼ inches or 7 inches, but I find that if I cut it 7 inches, sometimes it ends up being a little bit too short. And then there's a loop that needs to be 16¼ inches. Goes from the air intake around underneath the dragon and into the bottom of the Y. So that looks kind of like that. If anybody didn't see,
Were those like shark bites, the connection?
Yeah, I like that.
it's got like a little bit of a bevel thing in it, and so when it goes in, then it can't come back out unless you push and release the bevel. And then this piece right here gets an L on one end. The end without the L goes into the top Y, and then the end with the L goes into the air pump right there. Okay, now it's easier to do the wiring because that's kind of tricky to do once you have all the wiring in place. I like to go up between the dragon and, between the air pump or the water pump and the tubing right there, and pull it through just so that there's enough that you can tie all the wires together. And the wires, the 2 green wires are the ground wires, and so the 2 green wires go together with a wire nut that's provided with the kit, and you just put the wires together. I like to twist them a little bit so that they go into the wire nut well, and then the wire nut just screws right down. And I like to go until the wires are a little bit twisted up as well. And then the white wire, which is the electricity out wire, ties into one of the wires on the solenoid valve, which is one of these red wires right here. And it doesn't matter which wire goes to the white, just either of these red wires can tie into the white, and it's also fastened down with a wire nut. And then, just to keep those together, take a little bit of electrical tape and wrap them 2 wires up and tape them together.
This thing better work, Gabe.
It better.
How many of these did you build?
Quite a few. Probably maybe 100 of them
So
or so.
Jard, do you have any idea of the life expectancy of the pump?
Well,
Have
they're-
you
About a
worn
month.
one out?
About a
They
month.
come with a 13-month
Okay.
replacement guarantee.
Okay.
I've never had one burn out.
Right.
They're considered the highest quality high pressure pump. So yeah,
How much is
Like
it?
the
load on 'em.
I get
Yeah.
329.
You may have to replace the lid at some point, I suppose, kind of like the bucket lids and all.
Oh yeah, and also you could take the whole thing off and put it on top of like a 35-gallon trash can lid or something like that if you're really making quite a bit of aircrete. Alright, and then the wire that comes from the plug, which it's the wire that plugs into here, the black wire, we put a single eyelet on, which an eyelet is this little piece right here. The wire goes into one end and then there's a little hole for a screw on the other end. And I found that if you fold the single wire over before you push it into the eyelet tends to hold on to it a little bit better. And then I take the vice grips. You can use pliers or
No, you couldn't.
no, you couldn't. You have to use
No.
vice grips. Okay, cool.
It's got to be crimped really good.
Okay, you could use the vice grips and just squeeze the heck out of it, and then make sure that it doesn't come out. And then you take the switch and
Can
this.
I have a question?
Yeah, sure.
This is all runs on 110.
We have 220.
We have
as well.
220
Yes,
also.
Those wires.
Yeah.
And the little switch.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be allowed for, let's say, alternate current in Europe
They wouldn't be allowed for what?
because the power's too much in it.
Actually, when
They
you
use a
have
different-
220 volt, you actually have less amperage, so there's
Yes,
less.
But even then, it wouldn't be. They would ask
We
you to
we
use
send a
something-
lot to Europe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, it works. That's the main thing,
That's
right?
the problem.
But what's the
But-
problem? There's too much electricity running through it?
Yeah. For regular, for let's say the regulations.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, and this switch, many of the switches that we get, they have a sticker on the side of them that says on and off. However, this one doesn't. But at the bottom of the switch, there's a groove, and that's the off side. And so, I unscrew the little screw at the back of the switch on the off side. And put it through the eyelet. And screw it down. And it's good to hold the metal piece that's sticking out of the switch rather than holding the switch, because if you torque on that piece of metal sticking out of the switch too hard, then you can warp it or bend it or break it off even. So. And then the switch goes into the last hole in this plate right here. It just sticks right through, and then there's an on-off plate that there's a groove at the bottom of it so that it fits into the groove on the switch. And then there's this little rubber cover that just screws right on. Just like that.
And the instructions that come with this cover all these little details?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Alright, and then we take the other two wires, the second red wire from the solenoid valve and the power intake wire, twist them together, and put the other eyelet over them. Take the vice grips again, clamp it down, make sure they don't come out, and then tie that into the top of the switch with another screw that's on the switch.
How long do you make the one that goes down into the?
2 feet. Alright. Then you drill, so then there's a suction line tube that goes through the bucket down or through the bucket lid down into the bucket of water and foaming agent. And that's what the jar just cut right here. It's 2 feet long, and in order for it to go through, you got to drill a little hole approximately beneath that that hole right there, right? So we need this size, and we need the drill.
What size is that big?
1/2 inch, I think.
Yeah.
And then take the razor. So I drilled 2 holes side by side so that if you set the bucket down on a flat surface, the hose will be able to kind of run along the edge of it. And then cut out this bridge in between so that there's just a slot for the hose to come through. And then I put an elbow into this intake spot right there. Put the tube through like this, and then put a suction line strainer into the other end so that if you have some debris in your soapy water, it won't get sucked into the pump and mess it up. And And then we take these two little screws right here, push the end cap back, or the cover back on, and squeeze it together and drill it down. You need a size 1 or a size 2 screw bit, because they're really little screws.
You don't have one that comes with a kit?
No, we don't have the driver bits don't come with the kit. But the screws do. The driver
Oh,
bit
the
itself.
bit, you're
The
getting
driver
a
bit
bit.
doesn't
Okay,
go with
okay.
it.
Number 2, Phillips head.
Yeah, that's number 2 Phillips head. Okay, cool. And just put it right in. And then that there is fairly well done, except for the holes that you gotta drill for the clips. And these screws that go into the clips are a nice tight fit, so you can just push them into the clip before you start screwing them to kind of get them started a little bit. And you can put it up against the PVC wand, and that helps to push them down inside. And then we have this little guide right here that determines where these holes are drilled. But as long as you're in the general center of the routed slot in the top of the cover, then it'll be okay. And then we also have, well, no we don't. Alright, and then you can just set the caps right on top. Line up the holes, or line up the screw with the hole that you just drilled. And drill it down.
Is the set too low?
Is it what?
Is the strength set
Clutch,
too low?
is your clutch
No, it's because it's a impact driver, so
Oh, I
it
gotcha.
just
Makes
kind
that
of makes
sound.
that funny sound. Perfect. Okay, and then the way that so that's everything that you got to do for the Dragon right there. So that when you have your foam wand put together, you can clip it on top. There's a switch right there, and then actually that's not everything. And then there's this air quick release, so that when you connect to the compressor, you can just clip it right on, and that screws into the pressure regulator valve, and you can use a wrench to tighten that down. And then putting together the wand, we have this scouring pad and these two end caps. And we're going to move over to the vice grips again in order to put this together. Or, yeah, the vice.
This is great.
Alright, so when we send you these end caps, one of them will have a hex plug in it, and one of them will have a hole in it, and then you'll have this here extra air quick connect hose, and you just screw the air quick connect into that hole. And then what we generally use is hot glue to put them together, which is nice because it's not as like toxic and nasty smelling as PVC blue glue or whatever that stuff. So we just take the hot glue gun, put it around the circle, the inside of the end cap, put them together, and then we use a hammer to pound it down. And then once you have one side in,
I plugged in the hot glue gun, but
Oh.
it's probably not.
Sweet, okay, right
probably
there.
not ready yet.
it's not.
But I guess you could just demonstrate it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Alright, so then we take it, we put it in the vice grips. Oh, sorry, the vice. And then we take the steel wool. This is the scouring pad, is the agitator that turns the water and air into foam. And in order to get it to go into this, it makes it nice if you just kind of stretch it out a little bit. And then we take this here copper pipe that has the little perforations, but you can use any kind of sort of stick that will fit down inside there. And then we just take the steel wool and start stuffing it all the way down to the end. And you want to make sure that when you get started that you're pushing it as far down as it goes, because this pipe is barely cut big enough for this piece of steel wool to fit. And if if there's a little bit of a space down at the end when you're pushing it through, it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit all the way in.
Would it be better not to put the end cap on first?
Well,
No, it would just pop out the end.
right.
Oh, what if you took a pull string, fed a pull string through, then pulled it through and stopped it before it
Well,
came to the
it's
end?
gotta be packed in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right, because you want there to be kind of like a lot of back pressure on this as the air and the.
So do you understand the principle of how it works?
Yeah.
So you've got a high pressure pump that's pumping the fluid, which has foaming agent, we'll be mixing that up. And then you've got the air compressor going into a Y connector, so it's joining the high pressure fluid and the high pressure air. And then it's forcing it through this agitator, to get through that steel wool, it just really churns it up, and so it comes out like shaving cream. Okay, you have one that's already put together,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, but this is basically put together.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, I need to mount it.
Someone's purse is gonna get glued.
Right. So because there's little things sticking out on both ends of the foam wand, we put that down there so that you can set it right on top of it and bang on it without poking holes in things. Or busting up whatever you have. Okay, so we just take the glue gun and you put a nice amount of glue around the inside of the cap. Stick it on. Pound it. Do the same thing with the other cap. Put some glue in around it. Slide the cap on. Pound it. And then it all sort of, the glue hardens and keeps it all together. And then this last piece of hose that you have left over, you plug one end into the back of the foam wand. And then the other end goes into, could you hold that so it doesn't fly off the table? Thanks, and push it until you feel it go in. There we go. And then there's your little dragon. Put it in.
So let's make some foam, shall we?
Yes.
Yes.